In today's video, we are going to learn how to do the cute little conversation heart XOXO in the bottom corner. I'm going to take my time today. Normally I speed a lot of things up, but today is going to be basically all normal speed so you can keep up. So it's not basically so you can do it alongside with me. So I'm first going to start with getting a picture of a conversation heart. I'm using Unsplash Me. They are a stock photo service that's an app on my iPad, which I really love. So the bottom corner, I'll just tap and download it. And this isn't like the most ideal photo for a conversation heart shape, but we're going to roll with it. So I'm going to use this yellow one. Sorry for the little glitch. I don't know why I did that. And I'm going to trace it. This is the only part I really speed up because it basically took me forever to get the shape right, just because it's only one outline and I kept messing up. So basically what I did is I made one outline layer of what I hoped it would be like, but it's not perfect. And then I'll make a new layer on top of it, turn the bottom layer with the opacity down, and then use that as a better guide. So this is going to be sped up just a little bit. I don't have a whole lot of like outlining tips. You just kind of have to take your time. I recommend moving your arm at the shoulder rather than just moving your hand. That helps you get a little bit better motor control, a little bit better control. Yeah. So if that works best for you, do that. Know that it's okay to undo a ton of times because obviously you can tell I'm doing it a lot. So once I felt good about the shape, I just did a little bit of touching up with the eraser. I was using the monoline brush as the eraser. I'm also using the monoline brush with the streamline turned up as my outline brush. I forgot to mention that earlier. So I'm using the transform tool. I had the snapping on, but I'm going to turn that off because I don't need it on. And I'm just going to make it bigger. Make sure you've got bicubit on for the interpolation rather than nearest neighbor. That will make it, if you do make it bigger, it won't be as blurry. And I was actually pretty proud that it didn't get super blurry after that. So I'm going to put the outline layer on top. That makes sure all the color that we add underneath it doesn't interfere with it. I'm going to show you right here. So layer underneath, we don't want it on top, we want it below. So I'm now going to make my outline layer a reference layer, and that's going to allow me to use that outline as a guide, but I can get my color into a different layer. Now I'm going to find the right yellow. That was way too goldy, way too dark, so I'm going to use that as kind of a guide, make it a little bit darker, a little bit more yellow, find the right size or color for me. If you wanted, you could just color drop from a photo that you grab, whatever stock photo you grab for your colors. I just show you a second version of the heart that you can do, and I did that technique. So then I realized I forgot, because I want to add some shading to it, but I forgot to keep the photo. I deleted the layer, so I'm going to add that photo back in just so I can see how it's shaded. Oh, I accidentally had it as a clipping mask. It actually looks kind of cool, but obviously we're going to take it out so we can see what the shading's like and just use that as a guide. So we see that there's dark on one side and lighter on the other. So I'm not going to follow that as a strict guideline, but I just wanted it to look a little bit more true to form. So I'm going to do a layer mask in my layer on top. I'm going to use the overlay layer mask and then do a clipping mask on top of my color layer. This allows me to keep the color on the yellow that we've already added, but it will make it so I can edit it later. I like keeping things in separate layers. So I'm going to add, so with the overlay, it works in a grayscale. So I have like a dark gray for my shadow. And I'm going to add that for both the upper part as well as the side. And the overlay basically makes it so it keeps it the same hue, but changes the shade of it. So it makes it really nice for adding shading and highlights because it keeps it the same color. And just whatever works best for you. You could use the monoline brush for shading. You could use I was using the 6B pencil that I've increased the size of for shading, so you could do that too. So now we're going to come in with a light gray, basically white, and I didn't really love that, so a little bit darker than that, and just add the shading on the side. And again, I don't think you have to be perfect with this. This is just, it turned out the way that I wanted it to, but you can do whatever works best for you, or use whatever photo you have as a guide. If you are going to sell, make sure that you're using stock photos to trace, so you're not stealing someone else's artwork that hasn't authorized it. So that's why I use Unsplash Me. Now, in a new layer on top of all the layers, I'm going to color grab that like bright kind of pinky red, and you could write anything you want in there. I wrote "Say Yes" with monoline brush, but wasn't crazy about it, so I was like, oh, I'll do the XOXO because that actually turned out really cute. So you can use your own handwriting. If you don't want to, go to the actions, add, and then add text. And then for this one, I'm just going to type in XOXO, and this is going to be a guide for me to trace over. To edit, tip the AA right there. Increase the size if you want to, just make sure it's selected. Turn up the size, and then I'm going to bring the spacing a little bit closer together because I generally like my letters close together, but it's up to you. You could also just do XO if you wanted to. So now I'm going to do a new layer on top and turn the opacity down on our text so I can use that as a guide. My brush size was a little too big, so I ended up using just my traditional monoline brush. I also have a monoline brush where I have the maximum size turned up in the properties. So to get a perfect circle, hold for a second, and then with another finger tap. And I'm just using that quick shape here, so long hold and then tap with another finger to make it a perfect circle, and then let them go at the same time. And then I'm just going to get rid of the text layer. I'm going to duplicate it because I wanted a little bit of a shadow. So you can either swipe right with 2 fingers or just click alpha lock. This is gonna make it so I can just change the color all in one go rather than having to like basically redo everything. So I hit fill layer once I picked the color I wanted. Fill layer, and then drag it over to the side. And I didn't like the light pink, so I was like, ooh, I'm gonna do a dark pink. Turn the opacity down just a little bit, but I didn't end up liking how that looked, so I'm gonna do a dark red, fill layer, and I loved how that turned out. So that is basically our first option. I'm gonna give it a background. So that's kind of the more traditional. It's not perfect. I kind of like when things aren't as perfect. So if you wanted to say use this outline again in a different art piece, I'm going to show you how. So we're going to go and create a new canvas and then go back out. And then we're going to go into our layers tab and just long press and drag out on our outline layer, and then use our other finger to guide us to the gallery, to the canvas we want, and then back to the layers tab and drop it in. And there we go. You can also just copy a layer if you wanted to, if you didn't want to drag it over. You can also just duplicate your art piece and then go back in and either recolor something. Here I'm going to show you can go to the hue, saturation, and brightness in the adjustments tab, and you can change the hue right here. The other one, you can also change the saturation, so you could turn that down. If you wanted it to be brighter or darker, you could also change that as well. So that's a light pink version, where we use the overlay layer mask. It makes it so whatever color we choose, the blend mode will just automatically work with whatever color we change it. That's why I use that one. So if I wanted to recolor it, it also makes it really easy for that. So we're going to go through the same thing here. I'm going to end up adding that photo back in so I can color grab from it. So I wasn't sure what color I wanted, and then I figured I'd get this color from the other tab, so I just long press and held on what color I wanted, and then that's just going to stay my color. So I liked the peachy pink kind of orangish color, so I went back. I already had my color ready. I'm going to show you a different technique this time, so you can use the automatic selection tool. I had it on freehand, but automatic. Drag over to increase the threshold. You want it as high as you can without it popping out. That will just make it so it's really close to the outline. And then I'm going to color that in. I selected another layer, and that just makes it so it's easier to add shadows without messing with the outline, and make it so you can edit it in the future if you wanted to too. So I'm going to get a little bit darker of a color like I did for the last one, and color that in as well. You could also color drop in this if you wanted to, but sometimes it's fun to color it in. Color that in, and then so that they're separate, we're going to do the same clipping mask again on top of our color layer, and I'm going to use the overlay. I'm actually not going to use the overlay. I'm going to show that you can just adjust your own colors. So I'm going to get a darker color. I'm going to use more of a textured brush. This is the 6B pencil with the size turned all the way up in the properties section. I use it a lot in my videos. It's super awesome. So I'm just going to kind of mess with adding shadows similar to how they looked last time. And then we're going to add a highlight, getting us a light peachy pink to add that. And just mess around with that. I just followed basically what I did last time, light on one side and then darker on the other. I'm not super particular about it being perfect because I'm not doing this like super hyper realistic. So that's up to you. You can then change the opacity because I didn't want this to be as dramatic as the last one. You could also change the overlay, but where I didn't do it in grayscale, it just didn't quite work out. So I'm just going to keep it at normal. Multiply is another good one, but I didn't pick the right colors for it to work. So now we're going to add our text in, and you wouldn't necessarily have to do like a harsh text. You could do, like I'm going to write it in calligraphy. I'm going to do a B mine in that same reddish color, and it takes me a couple tries, but just see my creative process. I chose not to speed this up just so you can see that sometimes I try a lot of different things to see what looks the best. So I'm going to add the B mine in once I finally get it right, and then use the transform tool to move it over, and then add the mine in. I chose not to do it in separate layers just because I knew this was for the sake of a demo. So there's our B mine as an option if you wanted it to be a little bit less traditional. Another option I'm going to show you is again to add that text layer in. During this chunk, my sister texts a lot, and we had some conversations going on in our family group chat, so you'll see me swipe up a couple times. So there is our text. We're going to add in I heart you, and the nice thing is you can use emojis. So I'm going to use that emoji heart so I can outline it in a second so I can have a nice uniform looking heart. I'm going to turn that size up, and I don't think I messed with the spacing on this one. I just put it where I want it to, and then I'm going to lower the opacity for this one, and then trace over it again with that 6B pencil that I have the size turned up, and I kept the color the same. So this is me finishing it up. I color it all in. I swipe away a couple more text messages because I forgot to put it on airplane mode. But that is basically it. I hope that this little conversation heart mini lesson helped you both learn some new tricks for Procreate that you can use in the future, or to help you just create a conversation heart because it's adorable. If you stay tuned for later this week on the channel, I'm going to do another Procreate mini lesson for a heart-shaped balloon. I'm going to use a couple of different techniques, some similar ones that you can practice over and over again, and then some new techniques that could help you with your art going forward. So I'm going to show the little Procreate mini lesson for beginners that I showed at the beginning, so you can see a preview of the balloon tutorial that we're going to do later on. If this was helpful, please like and subscribe and stay tuned for more. Thanks for watching.